When you think of Glenn Quagmire, one word probably pops into your head: giggity.
Giggity, 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 ooh, ee, ooh, ah.
For years, he's been the sex-crazed neighbor on Family Guy, a simple caricature of perversion. But what if I told you that giggity is just a smokescreen? That hiding beneath the goofy, carefree deviant is a much darker, more hypocritical, and deeply self-justifying person. Today, we're going beyond the catchphrase to expose the truly disturbing character Quagmire has become. To really get it, you have to go back to the beginning. In the early seasons of Family Guy, Glenn Quagmire was way simpler. He was basically a cartoon version of a 1950s Rat Pack playboy. His entire personality was just two things. He was an airline pilot and he had an insatiable libido. His catchphrase, giggity giggity goo, was his calling card.
Oh, giggity, 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 ooh, ee, ooh, ah, ah, ting, tang, walla, walla,
A
bing,
silly,
bang.
almost goofy expression of his very adult obsession.
Our layover in Paris, and I'd love to include you in my horny plans.
Oui, oui.
He was a walking HR violation, but in a way that felt so over the top it was removed from reality. In episodes like Blind Ambition, his voyeurism was played purely for laughs. He was a peeping Tom.
A scandal at the Quahog bowling alley tonight, where a local man, Glenn Quagmire, was charged with peeping in the ladies' room.
Who accidentally became a hero.
Congratulations, Quagmire. You're the newest member of my Wall of
The
Fame.
humor was in the ridiculousness of it all. He was friends with Brian, his obsessions were pretty general, and his character hadn't been saddled with the dark, complicated baggage we see today. This early version of Quagmire was there to be the exaggerated IDs of the neighborhood. He was pure, unfiltered lust without the malice or psychological depth that came later.
Meg, get out of the way.
This foundation is key because it makes his transformation all the more jarring. The show set us up with a harmlessly degenerate character, only to slowly peel back the layers and reveal something rotten underneath. So where did it all go wrong? When did Quagmire go from a simple perv to something much more sinister? You can actually point to a single moment in Season 8, his explosive dinner table rant against Brian Griffin in Jerome is the New Black.
Whose leg do you have to hump to get a dry martini around here?
This scene was the moment everything changed for his character. Before this, Quagmire and Brian were, if not best buds, at least friendly. But this rant completely redefined their relationship and, more importantly, exposed a new ugly side of Quagmire, his massive hypocrisy. In the now famous monologue, Quagmire just tears Brian apart. He calls him a sponge.
All over his yard, and you're such a sponge. You pay for nothing.
Criticizes him for pretending to be some deep intellectual just to pick up women, and most of all, for constantly hitting on Lois, his best friend's wife.
You constantly hit on your best friend's wife. The man pays for your food.
On the surface, you might think he has a point, but coming from Quagmire, it's dripping with hypocrisy. This is a guy who not only has his own intense, creepy obsession with Lois, but is a far worse offender in every single category he attacks Brian for. Quagmire calls Brian a bad father, yet he's abandoned an unknown number of his own kids.
Which isn't nearly as bad as your failure as a father. How's that son of yours you never see? But you know what?
He attacks Brian for his romantic pursuits, while his own are sometimes criminal in nature. The rant isn't about morals, it's a projection of his own self-hatred. He doesn't hate Brian because Brian's a bad person, but because his flaws are just a pale reflection of his own monstrous ones. While Quagmire might try to claim he's at least honest about being a scumbag,
I date women for their bodies, but
this
at least I'm
moment
honest
shows
about
he
it.
has a
I don't-
desperate need to put himself on higher ground, to find anyone he can look down on. This was when his darkness got a new dimension. He wasn't just a deviant anymore. He was a self-righteous one. Nowhere is Quagmire's hypocrisy clearer than in his obsession with Lois Griffin. It started as a running gag, the horny neighbor with a crush, but it slowly morphed into something way more predatory and unsettling. And we're not just talking about a few dirty jokes at the clam. Quagmire's obsession is deeply invasive. He's been arrested for being a peeping Tom, spying on Lois in the bathroom. He has a secret collection of her personal items, including her toenail clippings. His attempts to get close to her often happen when she and Peter are having problems, because he sees her vulnerability as an opportunity to strike. This is what shifts him from a general purpose pervert to something more targeted. It's one thing to want to sleep with every woman you see. It's another thing entirely to systematically stalk your best friend's wife. In the episode Hot Pocket Dial, Peter accidentally records Quagmire confessing his deep, genuine love for Lois, calling her perfect and admitting he's loved her for years.
I want Lois. She's perfect. I've loved her for years.
Babka. could work.
Glenn, is this true?
And how the hell did you get that recording, Peter?
You pocket dialed me, you bastard!
But then, in a much later episode, the Lois Quagmire, Lois actually takes him to her high school reunion.
Up soon, and I thought maybe it'd be fun if, I don't know, maybe the two of us went together?
What about Peter?
And in a surprising twist, he purposefully refrains from making a move on her out of respect for Peter. This doesn't erase the years of predatory behavior, but it shows a character that is becoming more complex and conflicted. The giggity stops being funny when it's directed with such sinister and sometimes surprisingly emotional focus. One of the most disturbing aspects of Quagmire's humor is how the show handles consent. In Meg and Quagmire, the entire episode centers on Quagmire pursuing Meg as she turns 18.
I mean, a young woman's life. Hey, welcome to the adult club, huh? And you know what? You got another member right next door if you ever want to talk and stuff. Happy birthday.
Many viewers read this as normalizing predation and grooming, despite the show's satirical intent and eventual pushback within the episode. Quagmire has watched Meg grow up from childhood. The fact that he immediately pursues her the moment she turns 18 is deeply disturbing. Then there's Quagmire's mom. This episode features a statutory rape plot played for comedy and courtroom farce. Critics flag the trivialization of sexual abuse and mixed messaging around accountability. The show tries to have it both ways, acknowledging that what happened was wrong while simultaneously making it the punchline. This is the pattern with Quagmire's darkest jokes. They push taboo lines around statutory age or coercion, often provoking backlash. These aren't just edgy jokes, they're the show slowly unveiling a dark persona, one joke at a time. But to find the real root of Quagmire's whole deal, you gotta look at his family. This isn't just some quirky character trait, it's all tangled up in a history of trauma and violence. Take his relationship with his father, Dan, who later transitions to become Ida.
Everyone, I'd like you to meet Ida.
Hello, everyone.
When Dan first reveals he's a woman trapped in a man's body,
But I am a woman trapped in a man's body.
Quagmire's reaction isn't support, but pure disgust and denial. He even begs, "Oh, come on, just be gay."
Oh, come on, just be gay.
His struggle with Ida's identity forces him to confront his own rigid, misogynistic worldview. The whole thing gets even more twisted when Brian unknowingly sleeps with Ida,
I had sex with her! What? I had sex with her at the Marriott!
sending Quagmire into a violent rage where he beats Brian half to death. Then there's the matter of his children. In Quagmire's Baby, he discovers an infant daughter left on his doorstep.
Actually didn't want it.
A baby? I didn't sell a baby.
After a very clumsy attempt at being a dad, he decides he can't handle it and gives her up for adoption.
Do you wish to put this child up for adoption?
Yeah, it's not working out. I need to get her out of my hair.
He tries to rationalize it, saying it's in her best interest, but it's a profound act of abandonment, a moral failure he loves to criticize other people for. He attacks Brian for being a bad father, yet he gave up his own daughter without a second thought. This is peak Quagmire hypocrisy. He holds everyone else to standards he can't meet himself. But maybe the single darkest thing Quagmire has ever done is murder his sister Brenda's abusive boyfriend Jeff. In Screams of Silence, the story of Brenda Q, after watching his sister get relentlessly abused, Quagmire takes matters into his own hands. In the chilling climax, he forces Jeff to choke himself while taunting him. "I choke myself every day, you bastard."
I choke myself every day, you bastard.
This act, while coming from a twisted sense of justice, confirms that Quagmire is capable of cold-blooded murder. It proves his deviancy isn't just sexual, it's a capacity for extreme violence simmering just below the surface. The jokes fall away, and what's left is a man who will kill to enforce his own moral code. In Quagmire's Quagmire, the show does something fascinating. It flips the power dynamic on Quagmire by putting him against someone worse than himself. Quagmire meets a woman named Sonia, who is even more sexually aggressive and predatory than he is. She traps him in a sex dungeon and subjects him to the same kind of behavior he inflicts on others. This role reversal is brilliant because it reframes Quagmire's excess as vulnerability and naivete. When the tables are turned, Quagmire is terrified. He doesn't like being on the receiving end of predatory behavior. The episode parodies his excess by putting him against someone worse. It's the show's way of critiquing Quagmire's behavior without directly condemning it. By showing him as a victim, the audience understands how his own victims must feel. This episode adds layers to Quagmire's character. He's not just a predator, he's a man who has never considered what it feels like to be on the other side. And when he finally does, it breaks him. Here's the thing about Quagmire that most people miss. He's actually incredibly competent. The humor in his character rides the whiplash between degenerate and professional hero. In Airport 07, Quagmire's airline pilot skills are on full display. He's shown as a genuinely talented professional pilot. The contrast between his professional competence and personal depravity is jarring. This competence irony continues in Passenger Fatty 7 from Season 15, Episode 10, where Quagmire's pilot skills save lives. He's a hero in the cockpit and a monster outside of it. This juxtaposition is what makes Quagmire so fascinating. He's not just a one-note pervert, he's a deeply capable man who chooses to be depraved, and that choice makes him more disturbing, not less. As Quagmire's actions got darker, the show started dropping hints of a backstory, maybe to explain the monster he'd become. We learn about his one lost love, Cheryl Teagues, the woman he supposedly truly loved. The story implies that losing her sent him into a spiral, and his life has been a desperate, empty attempt to fill that void ever since. In more recent seasons, there's been a noticeable shift. The non-stop rapid-fire sex jokes have been toned down, and in their place is a more bitter and occasionally reflective character. We see him worried about his legacy, opening a cat cafe and showing a surprising soft spot for felines.
Well, I decided to open a cat cafe.
What's a cat cafe?
It's like a coffee shop, except one where lots of cats live and roam.
So is he actually growing as a person, or is the show just softening his most controversial edges for a changing social climate? These moments of growth and vulnerability don't erase the darkness, but they do add layers to it. He isn't just a monster, but a man grappling, however poorly, with the monster he is. Does a tragic past excuse his predatory behavior? Does a newfound love for cats make up for a lifetime of misogyny? The show leaves those questions open, forcing us to sit with the uncomfortable complexity of it all. So let's go back to the original question. When we look past the giggity, who is Glenn Quagmire? He sure isn't that one-dimensional pervert from season 1 anymore. He's a walking, talking contradiction, a man who violently enforces his own moral code while being flagrantly immoral himself. He's a self-righteous hypocrite who despises the very flaws in others that actually define him. He's a predator who cloaks his targeted obsessions in the guise of just being a horny guy. And he is a killer, capable of extreme violence when he's pushed. From the simple playboy caricature to the hypocritical rival, the obsessive stalker, and the violent vigilante, Quagmire's evolution has been one of the darkest character arcs in modern animation. The jokes aren't just throwaway gags, they're the breadcrumbs that lead us to the deeply damaged man under the Hawaiian shirt. He is a character built on trauma,
Oh my God!
self-loathing, and a pathetic need for justification. Perhaps the scariest thing about Glenn Quagmire isn't the jokes he tells, but the broken man he's so desperately trying to hide. Which Quagmire moment shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thanks for watching.